Everybody, I'm Ryan, and over the course of the past few weeks, we've talked a bunch about Izzet Prowess in Standard. We've done a deck tech, we've done why you should play the deck, a sideboard guide against the top 10 most popular decks in Standard, flex slots and different builds, as well as tips, tricks, and nuances of the deck. And I wanted to combine them all into one giant, comprehensive deep dive. Enjoy.
Look what I can do.
Getting some fuel with Corey Steelcutter, it has become one of the better decks, and I'm excited to talk about it today and why you should play Izzet Prowess in Standard. So Izzet Prowess uses prowess creatures that get bigger when you cast instants and sorcery spells. So Storm Chaser's Talent, Monastery Swift Spear, and Slickshot Show Off are the big ones, alongside Corey Steelcutter, meaning every time you cast your second spell, it creates a 1/1 with prowess, and then you can equip Corey Steelcutter to it, and it gives it haste and +1/+1, which is so good. And that's on top of a lot of the instant and sorceries in our deck costing 1 mana. So we can easily pump up our creatures, be able to deal a lot of damage for very cheap, and kill super quickly while not spending a lot of mana while our opponents are still setting up. As far as price goes, it's leaning on the middling end of price for standard decks. It's at just under $300 right now, which is right in the middle of competitive standard decks, and it's a fine collection building deck. It has all of the blue-red lands for standard, and most of the other cards it plays are played in other decks as well, so you wouldn't be wasting money if you bought these cards and then ended up not playing the deck. It has really good matchups against mono red, Esper Pixie, Omniscience combo, Dimir midrange, Guru aggro, and blue-white control, and bad matchups against the black-white Pixie deck. So this is Izzet Prowess in Standard. What this deck is basically attempting to do is play creatures with prowess, or prowess-esque things like Slickshot Show Off, and then cast a bunch of instant sorceries to make them really big, so it deals an insane amount of damage, often in 1 or 2 turns. So let's talk about the creatures first. We're playing 4 Monastery Swift Spear. Monastery Swift Spear is a 1 mana 1/2 with haste and prowess. It's just, for a very long time, really since Khans of Tarkir was printed, this is one of the more aggressive creatures ever printed, and very good when we're casting a ton of 1 mana non-creature spells. Often this is 3 power, 4 power, sometimes 5 power. We're playing 2 Drake Hatcher. Drake Hatcher is a 2 mana 1/3 with vigilance and prowess, so it's really good at blocking and attacking. Whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, put that many incubation counters on it, and remove 3 incubation counters from this creature. Create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. So this is a way to let you kind of go really wide against a lot of decks. It makes it an excellent blocker, and if you ever put a Monstrous Rage on this and are just able to slap 5 counters on it immediately, that is an extremely powerful play. We're playing 2 Slickshot Show Off. Slickshot Show Off is a 2 mana 1/2 with flying and haste. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +2/+0 till end of turn, so not strictly better prowess, but sometimes better prowess. And it has plot for 2 mana, which means you can pay 2 mana and exile it from your hand, and then cast it as a sorcery later on without paying its mana cost. And some cool combos you can do with the plotting. You kind of might want to plot this card on turn 2 instead of just getting in that 1 damage, because then a lot of sorcery speed board wipes can't hit it, and you can deal a ridiculous amount of damage the turn it comes out. There's a couple other pseudo creatures like Storm Chaser's Talent, which is technically a non-creature spell, so it triggers prowess. However, when it enters, it creates a 1/1 blue-red auto creature token with prowess. So it not only triggers prowess, but it creates something with prowess. You can pay 4 mana to have it become level 2 and return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Very good if we get in the mid game, and they're not dead yet, and need to return a Monstrous Rage or a Stock Up or something like that to your hand. And you pay 6 mana, which you rarely do, but it happens. You can pay 6 mana whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 blue and red otter creature token with prowess. Something's gone horribly wrong if we're using this ability, but it can win you some games. And then the last thing that can produce creatures is Corey Steelcutter, which really pushed this deck way over the top. It's a 2 mana artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, has trample and haste, and it has flurry. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess. You may attach this equipment to it. So this means every turn, and even during your opponent's turn if you can, I've seen it happen, you get a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess, which you immediately can give it haste, trample, and +1/+1 by equipping Corey Steelcutter to it. So gone unchecked, especially with multiple Core Steel Cutters, you can go very, 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 very wide by just casting multiple spells a turn, which this deck is built to do anyway. Plus, this card triggers Prowess for all the other things, and it makes Prowess things kind of on a stick over and over and over and over. I'll get to the 1-mana spells in just a second, but we're going to be refilling our hand with Stock Up. That's really what we're doing, is just kind of puking our hand onto the battlefield, but with all these Prowess creatures, dealing a bunch of damage, and then casting all these instant sorceries. But really, we're playing Stock Up, which it looks a little out of place, but it's just so powerful. It's a 3-mana sorcery. Look at the top 5 cards of your library, put 2 of them into your hand, and the rest in the bottom of your library in any order. This allows us to sort of refuel and also trigger Prowess, which is extremely powerful. And then this is supported by all of these 1-mana spells. So we're putting some cantrips in sleight of hand. 1-mana sorcery. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, put one of them into your hand and the other in the bottom of your library. And we're playing Opt, which is a 1-mana instant scry 1 draw card. Both of these cards let us churn through our deck, get lands if we need them, get threats if we need them, get whatever if we need them, while also triggering Prowess over and over and over and over. As far as like just damage dealing spells, we're playing 4 Burst Lightning. It's a 1-mana instant with Kicker for 4 additional mana. And you can Burst Lightning deals 2 damage to any target. The spell is kicked, deals 4 damage instead. Effectively, we're going to be using this as a shock most of the time. I mean, sometimes we'll get to 5 mana and use the Kicker, but this allows us to trigger Prowess, deals damage, and gets scary threats out of the way. Monstrous Rage, which is also an insane card in this deck, is a 1-mana instant. Target creature gets +2/+0 till end of turn. Create a monster roll token attached to it, which gives is an enchantment that gives +1/+1 and trample. This allows us to make blocking really, really weird for our opponents. It deals a ridiculous amount of damage. The monster roll stays on the creature, also triggers Prowess, makes it so hard to block all of these crazy good creatures. And then we're playing 3 Into the Floodmaw. Into the Floodmaw is a 1-mana instant. We can gift a tapped fish, and we return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. If the gift was promised, instead return target non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. This allows us to just be very, very aggressive, be able to return hate cards like Magebane Lizard or really, really big blockers or anything like that, to be able to squeak through that damage. Also, it triggers Prowess. It's just so powerful. So again, as far as the main deck goes, you're just getting these Prowess creatures on the battlefield, trying to cast multiple spells a turn to always make a creature with Core Steel Cutter, refilling with Stock Up, and then playing all of these very, very powerful instants and sorceries to trigger those Prowess. As far as the sideboard goes, we're playing an additional Into Floodmaw to get more things out of the way. We're playing 2 Spell Pierce. Spell Pierce is a 1-mana instant, counter target non-creature spell unless controller pays 2. Just really good way to interact with opponents like board wipes, like Temp Lockdown's pretty decent against us, besides against Into the Floodmaw, but it's still good to just like counter those removal spells and whatnot. We're playing an additional Drake Hatcher for decks that either don't have a lot of removal and we can just bury them in creatures, or decks that we need to be blocking against. Just Vigilance and Prowess is so powerful in this deck. Playing a Lithomanic Barrage, so 1-mana sorcery. Spell can't be countered. Deals 1 damage to target creature. Planeswalker deals 5 damage instead if that target is white and or blue. This is really decent against mostly the Oculus decks and really most decks that are playing Sheltered by Ghosts, which is pretty powerful against us. Paying that ward can be kind of hard. We're playing a Torch the Tower. This is a 1-mana instant with Bargain. It deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If the spell was bargained, instead it deals 3 damage to that permanent and you scry 1. If a permanent dealt damage by Torch Tower would die this turn, exile it instead. Very good against the aggressive decks, mirror match, mono red, all of that stuff. The exile thing really matters with Heartfire Hero, things like that. Playing Pyroclasm. It's a 2-mana sorcery. Pyroclasm deals 2 damage to each creature. Very good in the mirror matches because when we cast it, it triggers our Prowess, which gets most of our creatures out of range of Pyroclasm, and then your opponent sort of has to respond to it. Also decent against mono red and other go white strategies. We're playing 2 Sunspine Links, a 4-mana 5/4. Players can't gain life. Damage can't be prevented. When this creature enters, it deals damage to each player equal to the number of non-basic lands that player controls. This really allows you to kind of go over the top of those decks that are being greedy with their mana. Often those decks are the ones that are running a lot of removal, like Jeskai Control, Jeskai Oculus, Domain, things like that. It can just kind of be an end the game card. We're playing 2 Ral Crackling Wit. This is a 4-mana Planeswalker that starts at 4 loyalty. When you cast a non-creature spell, put a loyalty counter on Ral, so we get to just pile on royalty counters of this. +1 is create a 1/1 blue and red auto creature token with Prowess. -3, draw 3 cards and discard 2 cards. And -10 is draw 3 cards. You get an emblem with instant sorcery spells you have. cast have Storm, which is just ridiculous. But Ral is a card that we're going to be playing against decks that can answer our threats really easily, decks that are trying to go long, like these control decks in Domain and Jeskai and things like that. And then we're playing 2 Ghost Vacuum. Ghost Vacuum is a 1-mana artifact. We can tap it to exile target card from a graveyard and pay 6 mana and tap it. To sacrifice this artifact, put each creature card exiled with this artifact onto the battlefield under your control with a flying counter on it. Each of them is a 1/1 spirit in addition to its other types, activate only as a sorcery. This is a 1-mana way to pressure the graveyards, and then if the game goes really, really long, we can kind of cash this in. You know, if we side this in against Oculus, being able to just like get a ton of Oculus on the battlefield, who cares if they're 1/1 spirits, they still trigger Manifest, and it's still just very, very powerful to pop. And then, you know, the decks we're going to side this in against is just good against our graveyard. So this is his Izzet Prowess deck that he came in 18th in Regional Championship Minneapolis. He's playing an Into the Floodmaw. This is the 4th Into the Floodmaw. He's playing 3 in the main deck. This gets things out of the way and possibly some hate things out of the way as well. Spell Pierce is very cheap interaction on the stack. Unable to Scream is a card that can make problematic permanents not problematic, frankly, at all. Drake Hatcher is very good against decks that have difficulty answering it, and you can connect with it because it gives you like another go wide plan in addition to Corey Steelcutter and Insane when paired with Monstrous Rage. Torture Tower is your interaction against these fast decks like Mono Red and whatnot. Pyroclasm is your board wipe. Witchstalker Frenzy gets big butted things out of the way when you're going wide. Sunspine Link's very good against people that are greedy with their mana. Ral Crackling Wit we bring in against decks that are very good at answering our initial win condition and gives us an ability to play a longer game. And they're playing 2 Ghost Vacuum as Graveyard Hate. That being said, the most popular deck in Standard is the Mirror Match. In the Mirror, when you are on the play, you're bringing in the 2 Torch the Towers, the Drake Hatcher. You're going to be taking out an Into the Floodmaw and the 2 Slickshot Show Off just because it's way too easy to answer. So this is how I'm sideboarding on the play in the Mirror. And then on the draw, we're additionally bringing in a Pyroclasm and taking out a Monstrous Rage. And this is how we're sideboarding in the Mirror on the draw. On the play against Jeskai, Oculus, which is the second most popular deck, we're bringing in Ghost Vacuum, Torch the Towers, Into the Floodmaw, which is so good against this deck, and Witchstalker Frenzy, and we're going to be taking out the 2 Slickshot Show-Offs, which is definitely the flex slot in the deck, and Burst Lightning. This is how we're sideboarding against Jeskai Oculus on the play. On the draw, we're keeping in a Burst Lightning, so we can kind of interact with their super aggressive draws and shaving a Storm Chaser's Talent instead. So I'm sideboarding against Jeskai Oculus on the draw. The third most popular deck is Mono Red. Against the red aggressive deck, on the play, we're bringing in Pyroclasm, the 2 Torch the Tower, the Drake Hatcher, the Into the Floodmaw, and the Unable to Scream. And then we're taking out Monstrous Rage. We are taking out a Stock Up. We're taking out 2 Slickshot Show Off, and we're taking out 2 Storm Chaser's Talent. And this is how we're sideboarding against Mono Red on the play. And then on the draw, it changes very slightly, but we're also bringing in Witchstalker Frenzy, and then we're cutting an additional Monstrous Rage. So this is our sideboarding against Mono Red on the draw. The fourth most popular deck is Jeskai Control. Against Jeskai Control, we're bringing in the 2 Ral Crackling Wit, bringing in the 2 Spell Pierce, the Sunspine Lynx, the Into the Floodmaw, and the Witchstalker Frenzy to get through their big butted blockers, bringing out the 4 Burst Lightning and bringing out the 4 Monstrous Rage. This is how we sideboard against Jeskai Control. Against Esper Pixie, which is the 5th most popular deck, we are bringing in Pyroclasm. We are bringing in Ral. We are bringing in Sunspine Lynx. We are bringing in Torch the Tower, and we are bringing in the Drake Hatcher. We're taking out 2 Burst Lightning. We're taking out 2 Into the Floodmaw. We're taking out the 2 Slickshot Show Off. They can just block it way too easy. And 3 of the Monstrous Rage. 2 of the Monstrous Rage, I mean. And this is how we're sideboarding against Esper Pixie. The 6th most popular deck is the Azorius Omni deck. Against Omni, we're bringing in Ghost Vacuum to hate against their combos. They can't reanimate Omni. We're bringing in 2 Spell Pierce so we can interact on the stack. Into the Floodmaw so we can interact on the board after they've started the combo. And then Witchstalker Frenzy. Bringing out the 2 Drake Catcher. There's no point in going wide. We're just trying to kill as fast as possible. And then Burst Lightning really has no targets except for when they reanimate the Omni, but I'd rather just try to kill him as fast as possible. And this I'm sideboarding against Azorius Omni. The 7th most popular deck is Domain. Against Domain, we are bringing in the 2 Ral Crackling Wit. We are bringing in the 2 Sunspine Lynx. We are bringing in an Into the Floodmaw. And we're bringing in a Witchstalker Frenzy. Bringing out the 2 Drake Hatcher. Going wide isn't very good against board wipes. And then the Burst Lightning doesn't really kill anything. And this is our sideboarding against Domain. Against Dimir Midrange, which is the 8th most popular deck. We're bringing in the Rouse, the Torch the Towers, a single Sunspine Lynx, and a Witchstalker Frenzy, bringing out the 2 Drake Hatchers, out the 2 Monstrous Rage, and out the 2 Slick Shot Show Off. And this is our sideboard against Dimir Midrange. Against the Black-White Pixie deck, we're bringing in the 2 Ral again, the two of the Sunspine Lynx, Into the Floodmaw, and where's it? Witchstalker Frenzy, bringing out 4 Monstrous Rage. The removal is just so good. And out 2 Drake Hatcher. This is our sideboarding against Black-White Pixie. And then the 10th most popular deck is Golgari, mid-range against Golgari. We are siding in Ral Crackling Wit, the 2 Sunspine Lynx, the Torch the Tower, and Into the Floodmaw, and a Witchstalker Frenzy. Bringing out 2 Drake Hatcher, 2 Slick Shot Show Off, and the 4 Monstrous Rage. Is our sideboarding against Golgari mid-range.
Oh, hello there. I'm glad you made it this far in the video. It probably means you're enjoying what you're watching. And I just wanted to let you know that I have a TCG Player store that funds a lot of the content that you're seeing, that in part allows me to do this full time. Because as you can see from my view count, I do not make enough money to be able to actually do this. So if these videos have helped you in any way, there's a few ways that you can support me beyond just like donating money, but things that you can get stuff back on. If you have cards you want to sell, then you should email me at justbottingbiz@gmail.com. Put right here. It's also in the description of every one of the videos. We can figure something out. I can make some offers. Having more inventory is super helpful, and you get money. And you can support me. The other way you can support me is by buying from my TCG Player store, which is also linked down below and in the link tree and all of that stuff. Link right here. You should totally check that out. I'll send you some cards. Maybe write you a little note if I know that you're from the videos. That's it. Please consider it and enjoy the rest of your video.
These are the non-flex slots. These are the cards that if you're playing this deck, you are bought into playing. These 51 cards in the main deck and these 2 cards in the sideboard. But what this video is actually about is what cards do you play in the 9 leftover slots in the main deck and the 13 leftover slots in the sideboard. Well, these are your common options. You have about 22 choices for the main deck to fill those 9 slots and 34 choices for the 13 slots in the sideboard. So let's talk about these cards. Number 1 is Into the Floodmaw. You can play up to 2 more Into the Floodmaw. Into the Floodmaw is a 1-mana instant. Gift target tap fish, where you can give your opponent a 1/1 blue fish as you cast it and have it return target creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. If the gift was promised, instead return target non-land permanent an opponent controls to its owner's hand. This is very powerful, getting things out of the way. It triggers prowess, so it powers up your homies as well. But it gets blockers out of the way so you can attack, which is awesome. And then there's this really common play pattern against temporary lockdown decks as well, where at the end of your opponent's turn, gifting a tap fish to bounce a temporary lockdown, get all of your stuff back, untap, kill your opponent. It makes temporary lockdown really awkward to play against this deck when otherwise it would be insane against prowess. You can play 2 Spell Pierce. Spell Pierce is a 1-mana instant counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2. Having very cheap interaction against these non-creature spells, again being able to counter things like Split Up and Temporary Lockdown and Removal and Lightning Helix or whatever, is all very powerful. And have it being cheap is also really important because we both want to cast a lot of spells, and also we don't want to have to leave mana up when we pass our turn. You play up to 4 Torch the Tower. Torch the Tower is a 1-red instant with Bargain, meaning you can sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token as you cast this spell. Torch the Tower deals 2 damage to target creature or planeswalker. If the spell was bargained, instead it deals 3 damage to that permanent, and you scry 1. If a permanent dealt damage by Torch the Tower would die this turn, exile it instead. Exile removal is so good. You can bargain it reasonably easy as well in this deck. There's a lot of tokens and whatnot. And just having this burn and exile removal can stop a lot of really scary stuff. And just 1 mana removal in general is powerful. You play up to 4 Drake Hatcher in the main deck. Drake Hatcher is a 2 mana 1/3 with Vigilance and Prowess. When this creature deals combat damage to a player, put that many incubation counters on it. And you can remove 3 incubation counters from the creature, create a 2/2 blue Drake creature token with flying. This card is really awkward to block because you kind of have to block it or else they're going to start going super, super wide. 3 toughness is insane in this deck, especially since it has prowess and we have a lot of instant speed ways to trigger prowess. So a lot of the damage based removal can't kill it. And it's also a really good blocker. This is just a really, really solid card, especially if you are getting through and especially alongside Monstrous Rage. Play up to 2 Thundertrap Trainer. Thundertrap Trainer is a 2 mana 1/2 with Offspring for 4 mana, meaning if you pay an additional 4 mana, you get a 1/1 token copy of Thundertrap Trainer. And when this creature enters, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. Most of our deck is non-creature non-lands, to be totally honest. And so this is actually really good against decks that you're going really late against. Being able to pay 6 mana, which does happen, and apply 2 threats and also get 2 cards in your hand that are very powerful. Really, often we're only a card or 2 away from killing our opponent. Is really good. The downside of this card is it's not very aggressive. Playing it on turn 2 feels kind of bad. You can play up to 2 Abrades. Abrade is a 2 mana instant. You can choose one, deal 3 damage to target creature, destroy target artifact. The damage-based removal is solid. Getting blockers out of the way is always great. Destroying the target artifact is very good in the mirror matches, like against other Corey Steel Cutters and whatnot. You can play up to 4 Slickshot Show Off if you want to be hyper aggressive. Slickshot Show Off is a 2 mana 1/2 with flying and haste. When you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn, and you can plot it for 2 mana, where you may pay 2 mana and exile this card from your hand, cast as a sorcery on a later turn without paying its mana cost, and you can plot only as a sorcery. Slickshot Show Off is an incredibly aggressive card. The issue with it is damage-based removal is very good against it because we cannot prowess it up, its toughness up. It only pumps the power. However, we can plot Slickshot Show Off in a really cool way, where we can plot it in turn 2, then turn 3, cast Corey Steel Cutter, and then Slickshot Show Off can be the second spell to trigger Corey Steel Cutter the same turn it comes out, and then we still have a mana up, which is very, very powerful. And also, again, like, it's very aggressive. I also play up to 2. That's tiny big enough. That's tiny big enough. It's a 5 mana instant that costs 3 less if it targets a permanent you control. And it says return up to 2 target non-land permanents to their owner's hands. It's kind of neat because you can pay 5 mana and get 2 things out of the way and then jam, which is awesome. You can also target like your own Storm Chaser's Talon and get something out of the way of your opponents, which is also awesome, just for 2 mana. Or return 2 of your Storm Chaser's Talon, or protect your Corey Steel Cutter from things like a Braid. You know, it's all around pretty neat. So you're going to be selecting 9 of these 22 cards for your main deck, and then we're going to be selecting 13 cards for our sideboard. We've already talked about Into the Flood Maw. You can do that in the board. Again, we've already talked about Spell Pierce. You can play up to 2 Unable to Scream. Unable to Scream is a 1 mana enchantment that says enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a toy artifact creature token with base power and toughness 0/2 in addition to its other types. As long as enchanted creature is face down, it can't be turned face up. It's very good against big blockers or major threats. It allows us to race. It allows us, I mean, they can chump block off of an Unable to Scream, but also this is one of the only ways, as like, it's a pseudo hard removal for a blue-red deck. Witness Protection is sort of like Unable to Scream. It's a 1 mana enchantment. I can enchant the creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and is a green-white citizen creature with base power and toughness 1/1 named Legitimate Business Person. Being a 1/1, it can't really block things for value, though it allows it to double block and contribute power to killing our creatures, which can be kind of awkward. But 1 toughness is also a little bit easier for us to deal with. So take that with a grain of salt. I personally think Unable to Scream's a little bit better, but some people are playing Witness Protection. You can play up to 2 Disdainful Stroke. Disdainful Stroke is a 2 mana instant counter target spell with mana value 4 or greater. Very good against decks that are going really big against us, like the Just Guy control deck. I already talked about Drake Hatcher. You can play up to 2 Negate. Negate is a 2 mana instant counter target non-creature spell. Very good against decks that are playing a lot of non-creature spells that are good against us, like, you know, things like Temporary Lockdown and Day of Judgment and stuff. You can play up to 2 Get Out. Get Out is a 2 mana blue notably instant. Choose 1 counter target creature or enchantment spell. Return 1 or 2 target creatures and or enchantments you own to your hand. It's a really interesting way to protect your own stuff. Also, being able to reset Storm Chaser's Talent like we can do with this town is really cool, and also being able to counter opponents' enchantments. So this is really good against decks like Domain, but also has some other for very specific applications. You can play up to 2 Enduring Curiosity. Enduring Curiosity is a 4-mana 4/3 with flash. When a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. When Enduring Curiosity dies, if it was a creature returned to the battlefield under its owner's control, it's an enchantment. Enduring Curiosity is really good against decks that are going really long and we need those extra cards. Also, notably, it does not die to temporary lockdown because it's 4 mana and also stays on the battlefield if they Day of Judgment. So it's kind of hard for a lot of opponents to deal with. Before I talk about this town, we could play those on the sideboard. We could play Lithomanic Barrage. Lithomanic Barrage is a 1-mana sorcery. The spell can't be countered. Lithomanic Barrage deals 1 damage to target creature or planeswalker. It deals 5 damage instead if that target is white and or blue. Very good against white and blue stuff. So specifically like Oculus. The issue with Oculus though is it's really easy for them to put a Sheltered by Ghosts on something like Fear of Missing Out or Marauding Mako, which makes Lithomanic Barrage look really awkward in your hand, but I still think it's very good dealing with opposing Oculuses and you know, in the few hands that they can beat us with. Before I talked about Torch Tower, we can play that in the sideboard. Same thing with a Braid. We can play Scorching Shot. Is a 2-mana sorcery, deals 5 damage to target creature. Another great way of getting things out of the way. Costs double red, 5 damage, kills most things in the format. 2 mana can end up being a lot, but if something is 5 toughness, it's going to block us for a very long time. You can play Rebel Salvo. Rebel Salvo is a 3-mana instant with affinity for equipment. We have Corey Steelcutter, so like, you know, often this is cheap. It deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. That permanent loses indestructible until end of turn. So just another way, often easier to cast way than Scorching Shot to deal 5 damage. And Witchstalker Frenzy, which is slowly getting out of favor, but I still wanted to put this in this video, is a 4-mana instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature that attacked this turn. It deals 5 damage to target creature. So it has the same applications as Rebel Salvo and Scorching Shot. However, you need to be attacking to make it really cheap. This deck is for sure attacking and very often is going wide, especially as it runs more and more Draycatcher. But paying 4 mana to deal 5 damage when we aren't attacking can be really awkward. We play up to 2 Sunspine Link. Some decks are playing 4. I think 2 is kind of our max though. It's a 4-mana 5/4. Players can't gain life. Damage can't be prevented. And when this creature enters, it deals damage to each player equal to the number of non-basic lands that player controls. This is an awesome threat. It stops things that have your opponent gain life, which can be kind of awkward for us because we really don't want to burn out. And also really good against decks that are being greedy with their mana base like Oculus or Domain or Jeskai Control or whatever. You can play an additional Row Crackling Wit. Row Crackling Wit is a 4-mana planeswalker that starts at 4 loyalty. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a loyalty counter on Ral, which we have a lot of non-creature spells. We can +1 to create a 1/1 blue and red auto creature token with prowess. Already great. We can -3 to draw 3 cards and discard 2 cards. Allows us to have that card selection and dig through our deck for that few points that we're missing. And his -10 is draw 3 cards. You get an emblem with instants and sorcery spells you cast have storm. So we win when we -10, especially since we get to draw 3 cards in addition to it. And it's reasonably easy to alt Ral if it goes unanswered in this deck as well. It's really good against those decks that are going very long against us and we need a really sticky threat. And then we can play an additional Ghost Vacuum. Ghost Vacuum is a 1-mana artifact. We can tap it to exile target card from a graveyard. And we pay 6 mana and tap it to sacrifice this artifact. Put each creature card exiled with this artifact onto the battlefield under your control with a flying counter on it. Each of them is a 1/1 spirit in addition to its other types. Activate only as a sorcery. So this is a way to apply pressure to the graveyard and exist as graveyard hate since there isn't a lot in blue-red decks, while also being a super late game. You can just like cash it in to put a bunch of creatures that you've already exiled onto the battlefield, which is very powerful, especially against these like Oculus decks and whatnot. But again, you're going to be selecting 13 of these 34 cards in the sideboard and 9 of these 22 cards in the main deck, and then you have your very own butt stock version of Izzet Prowess in standard. You can trigger Corey Steelcutter off of a plotted Slickshot Show-Off. So if on turn 2 you plot a Slickshot Show-Off, and turn 3 cast Storic Corey Steelcutter, and then you can cast the plotted Slickshot Show-Off, it'll trigger Corey Steelcutter even though Slickshot Show-Off was for free, and you'll have a single mana open to either trigger the Prowess, counter removal spell, you know, whatever. It's a very powerful play and an extremely explosive turn 3 that's really hard to deal with for a lot of opponents. One of my favorite lines in Izzet Prowess is against temporary lockdown decks. In the mid game, if you're unable to kill them in the early game, often they'll temp lockdown away a bunch of your things, whether it be creatures, Storm Chasers, Talents, you know, all of that stuff. During your opponent's end step, you can into the Flood Maw, the temporary lockdown, you get everything back, and then you get to untap and they are not summoning sick and you can attack. I've seen a lot of games against like Jeskai Control end with an end step temporary lockdown, untap, kill them. And that is a rough thing for temporary lockdown decks to deal with. Draycatcher gets incubation counters equal to the amount of damage it deals to the opponent. So if you Monstrous Rage Draycatcher, you can get a lot of incubation counters all at once and immediately get a bunch of Drakes. This is true for any Slickshot Show-Off deck. Plotting Slickshot Show-Off means that it can avoid sorcery speed removal, and the turn that you play it, you'll have a lot of extra mana to dump into dealing damage with Slickshot Show-Off, which is very powerful. And finally, sometimes you don't just jam Corey Steelcutter on turn 2. Your opponents are often expecting it, but jamming Steelcutter on turn 2 gives them time to prep for a Steelcutter turn, or even answer Steelcutter before you can trigger it. You almost always, unless you have literally nothing else to do, want to play Cutter on 3 followed by a 1-mana spell so you can immediately trigger Cutter after you play it, so you can always get value off of it, even if they have a Braid. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.